All right, let me know where you guys are from, who's watching. If you don't know who I am, I'm Nakia, also known as Beauty Cut Right, with my three channels: beauty, fashion, and fitness. Um, Today is about your sewing machines, so I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to make it through. I'm going to start in about 4 minutes because it's 2:01. I want to make sure that there's enough people that catch on before I start talking, because once I start talking, I'm not repeating everything. I'm just going to go from step to step. If you can see right there, I keep everything like organized as far as what I'm going to be talking about, especially because this is a free live course. And this is something for those of you who are not sure about taking my courses, because I'll be doing more in the industry when it comes to cosmetology and wig making and in the entertainment industry. And I'm sharing that with you guys so that you guys can make some money doing this stuff too. And I'll be showing you how you can get involved in that. So this gives you an idea of how I teach the courses, and this also helps for those of you who are cosmetologists, stylists, licensed stylists, cosmetologists, and this is something you want to do to, build more money when it comes to your own business. And those of you who are not and you just want to learn this because it's for you and you don't care to do anything else with it but to be able to save yourself some money when it comes to wigs, and for whatever reason it may be, hair loss, just want to maintain your own natural hair, or just want to make your life easier by just putting on a wig and calling it a day. So I'll give it a couple of more minutes, but let me know where you are watching from. If you are not able to comment, it's probably because you're not looking at it from your YouTube app or actually on YouTube, whether you're on your mobile device or if you are on your computer. If you're on your computer, you should be right there on it. So I'm on my mobile device. Move around. I'm going to be moving around a lot, so I hope you guys don't get too dizzy. But I am going to be moving around a lot. So you can comment. I'm able to see what's going on and if there's any comments and anything on my phone and on my laptop. So all you have to do is press the YouTube as at the bottom of this video so you can be able to comment if you want to. So another 2 minutes. And if you don't want to say anything to me, I don't care. I'm going to teach you anyway. So let me know where you're from, who's watching. Don't be shy. Why are people so shy? They just let me know who they are. Are you just being nosy and trying to figure me out? Hi, Tiffany. Hi, Natasha. How are you? So it shows me. So if you are able to comment, that means you are able to ask questions. So there are going to be times where I'm going to pause or say, hey, I'm going to give it some time for some questions, and I'm going to do it in each segment so it makes it a lot easier for you. Hey, Danielle. Hi. So it'll give me some, I'm going to do it in segments. So each thing is demonstrated, taught, and then give about a 5-minute, questions so that I can answer them and then move on to the next step. So that's how I can do it. Hey, I see you guys. Okay. We got 1 more minute, so giving people time to come in. So I know this is a free event. This is a free course. Again, as I'm mentioning, this is for those of you who are not sure. This is also for those of you who are already my students, and I want to reiterate this information because those of you who are my students now and those of you who are not, you have sewing machines and you don't know how to use them or you're not sure how to use them when it comes to wig making, because there are some similarities when it comes to the fashion industry and making clothing. But let's talk about how to use your sewing machines, because I know some people have had hard time and hard issues with that. So this is everything that I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to introduce myself again. I'm going to be talking about how you can wind your bobbin, how you can thread the machine, I'm also going to give you some demonstrations on what's the best things to use. I'm going to show you what they are as far as thread and all of that is concerned. How to troubleshoot when you have certain issues with your sewing machine when you are sewing. And this is good for those of you who are already familiar with your sewing machines too, and you have some issues and you're just not exactly sure what or why that's happening when you come into an issue. And then last but not least, I'm going to be demonstrating finishing up a wig that I am doing for the courses now. So I have some videos that will be uploaded to the student area for sewing machine wigs on a different cap. So there's a new technique that I've learned that's really good for at-home sewers. I would say people who plan to make wigs for themselves and they have a smaller head or they don't have as much hair on their head as I do. But yeah, or as much hair at all. But it's on a different cap. So I'll be showing you techniques on that. So without further ado, real quickly, my name is Nikia. I am also known as Beauty Cut Right. I have 3 channels on YouTube. I'm an influencer. I'm a lifestyle mentor and coach. I am a business consultant. I do a whole lot of things. And I have been an educator for over, I got to start adding up, but it's probably about 15 years. I've taught fashion design. I've taught, well, I still teach these things, but fashion design, but I've taught that for 12 years at a different college. I teach digital media, graphic arts, web design, which is you're looking at things live and you know my website that was built, created, email marketing, all of that stuff is done by me because I teach it at College of Creative Studies. So I know the whole business aspect when it comes to education and doing it in this format, which is online. So yes, I do it all. So I used to create curriculums for online courses for International Academy of Design and Technology. So I used to create their curriculum so that the faculty can facilitate the programs. So that went into the whole videos that they had to do live for demonstrations or discussions, discussion boards, discussion threads, the actual curriculum, what order everything should be taught, all of that. And you can see that by how I do things, that's where my experience comes from. So with all of that said, this is a free to you. I'm going to make sure that it's live on my Beauty Cut Right channel after I'm done so that those who are interested, they'll at least get to know exactly how I'm going to be doing courses online at wigmaking101.com. So first things first, winding your bobbin and threading your sewing machine. So if you are already familiar with these things with your sewing machine, please bear with me. This is specifically for people who have no freaking clue when it comes to their sewing machine. They have one and they don't know how to use it, or they have one and kind of got a lapse of days ago way of understanding what their sewing machine is. So I'm going to take this off at times so you can see what's going on. So I'm going to turn here. So I'm going to show you the sewing machines that I do have, and I'm going to tell you that all sewing machines work for wig making, so it doesn't matter. The only sewing machine you don't want to use for wig making is this. This is a serger. So this is for finishing for garments. I would never suggest that you use a serger for making wigs. So with all that said, these sewing machines I use for when I do tutorials for making clothes. So I don't use this for my sewing machine, for my wigs at all. So these are digital. As you can see, they're both Brother. I find that Brother is the best sewing machine to use because they're so easy to, let's see, is that giving me, there's the focus, because they're easy to use. And what I mean by that, they give you visual diagrams on how to thread your bobbin, how to wind your bobbin, how to thread your sewing machine, which I'm going to demonstrate that anyway, and all other features, different stitches and things like that you are able to use. So all sewing machines are good except for sergers. That's why it's a different name. So the one that I use the most for, and it was the very first sewing machine I had. I used to have a Singer, but the very first sewing machine that I did purchase for myself or at home was this one. So this is a brother sewing machine. I like this one. It's simple, it's sweet. I need to get it maintenance because I can't seem to wind the bobbin on it. It gets stuck, but I'll still be able to demonstrate to you guys. I'm going to turn this light on. I got this from a company. They sent it to me, and I'm going to be doing a review on these lights, but oh, I can't even pull my chair back. So this is a sewing machine that I have, and I'm going to give you a quick demonstration on how to wind the bobbin and how to thread the machine. And then I'm going to give you some other ideas, other things that you need to make sure that you do, because usually when you have a sewing machine, all of your materials and are inside of this, and you might have separated them from it. I did, but we're going to wind this bobbin and thread the machine, and then we're going to move on to the next part. So let's do this. So again, forewarning you, I'm going to be moving my camera around a lot. I'm going to do it make it easy for you guys to see. Don't want that in the way. It's in my way. You guys can't see when it's in the way. So give me time. Ah, awesome. I love phones. This is way better than what we used to do when I have to create curriculums for online courses. You really didn't get to see your teacher if you did, but cell phones just make life so much easier. So first things first is winding your bobbin. So all Brothers sewing machines, like I said, they have the diagrams in the top so that it could tell you exactly how you want to do it. So just keep that in mind. But this is the first step. So we'll talk about what type of thread you can use and all of that a little bit later. But your spool of thread, and then you follow the guides. So there's guides at the top. It'll tell you exactly how you need to do it. You'll pull it through, not through here. It tells me to go over and around. And now you're trying to bring it over to where the bobbin needs to be winded. So with your bobbins, they have little holes in the top and bottom of your bobbin, depending on your sewing machine. There's plastic ones for the Brothers sewing machines, and depending on how your bobbin looks on the bottom of your machine, you might have metal. It all depends, but whatever you do, you want to make sure that you can pull the thread up, through, and then you can pull it here. Now, there's some tricks that I do that I prefer a newbie to do anyway, because you want to make sure that when you wind the bobbin, which means the sewing machine is going to do that for you, you want to make sure that it's going in the right direction and it's tight. So I'm actually going to take my thread, one finger and then the other, and then I'm going to wrap that excess that's in the top around as tight as I can. And then I'm going to hold it, push it over, and when you push it over, your sewing machine needs to be on, and then you need to press the presser foot. What I mean, this sewing machine doesn't do it. Not the presser foot, but the pedal. This sewing machine doesn't do it, but this is what you're supposed to be pressing. The pedal that's attached to the sewing machine. So you want to make sure you press that, and then it should, but mine is not going to do it. But what happens is it starts to wind the thread around this bobbin, and you want it to be tight, so don't hand wind thread onto your bobbin. Let the sewing machine do it. Now, I do have an external bobbin threader, but if I have an issue, I just go to my other sewing machines until I get this one serviced, fixed. But you would press the pedal, and it's supposed to turn, and it'll wind the bobbin, and it'll push off once it has enough thread, because this is made to help it push off, and you can twist it whatever you want to, or you can do it by eye and see if you have enough thread. Make sure it doesn't go wider than the actual circumference of the actual bobbin top and bottom. Those are very important things that you want to make sure. So you want to make sure you have bobbin thread. So, any questions? Any questions before I move on? If that's simple, I'll go back to it. All right, so threading your sewing machine. Again, I'm going to say brother sewing machines are great if you have a Singer or any other like Juki or Von Close. There's so many different brands of sewing machines, but they're all threaded the exact same way. Your bobbin and putting your bobbin in may be different from sewing machines that are industrial sewing machines or sewing machines that are a little bit older in their style of being made. But the newer ones, they're going into the plastic and they're top or they're front loaded. So it all depends. All of my sewing machine, brother sewing machines are top loaded, meaning when I show you in the sewing machine, you just drop the bobbin in from there. So threading your sewing machine is the same across the board for most sewing machines. So let's pay attention to that. So I'm gonna keep it. All right, so I'm gonna stick with black because the I'm gonna cut this. I'm gonna stick with black thread because the wig that I'm getting ready to finish off is black hair, so the tracks are black. So we'll get there. But again, your sewing machine does have guides once again. So you need thread, you need your top spool, and you need your bobbin, and you need your bobbin to be winded. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is thread or put the bobbin inside. So like I said, there's front loaded where if you open and your sewing machine has the bobbin that goes in and it's metal, you'd have to put it in there a certain way. Read your manual for that. It's very simple. But if you have this particular sewing machine where it's top loaded, you're just going to open that plastic piece in the top. Again, it does give you a guide as to how it should look. So it should look like a snail pulling over, or it all depends on what the graft looks like in your what the graft looks like on your sewing machine. So I need to be able to see it, make sure that you guys can see me. There we go. So I'm going to pull it on over, and I'm going to leave the thread extended out. You don't need a lot pulled out. Sometimes I think people have a hard time when they're threading their sewing machine. They have all this excess thread out. You don't need a lot, just enough. And I'm going to leave that open, and then I'm going to put this back in. So that's simple. So putting the bobbin into your sewing machine is really simple. Some tricks that I'll talk about when it comes to seam allowance and all of that, that's fashion aspect, but there's ways that you can sew wefts onto the cap using specific tips. So we'll get there. So that's done. So the sewing machine, as far as threading the spool of thread, we're going to put it in on top of its spool holder. And then I'm going to follow the guide that it gives me. So this is the very first thing that you want to do is you want to pull it towards you. So I'm taking the thread and I'm holding it in one hand and pulling it in the other. And as I pull, it has number guides that you can pay attention to on your sewing machine. You're going to bring it down into it. You're going to loop it up and over. And then inside of here, there's a like C loop. You have to make sure that it comes through that loop. So I want to see if I can zoom in a little bit closer for you guys to see that. I'm scared that you might not be able to see it, but we'll see. But let's see. I'll give it a second. So there's a loop. You can't see it. So I got a better idea. How about I take this thing off of the thing so you can see it? Focus, and you see that. on the inside of your sewing machine. Cool. So most sewing machines have this loop that you would pull the thread through. So you want to make sure that you're able to pull that through. See, I noticed the number guides that are on there where it tells you exactly what you need to do. So you're pulling your thread through, looping it based off what it says right here, and then you're going to bring it right on down. You're going to bring it right on up, because see, that's number 3, or it might be number 2 for all we know on your sewing machine. Bring it up, and then you're going to loop it through. You're going to pull that thread through so that is in there. If you can't see that and you can't do that, you need to turn the knob. You need to turn that. So as I'm turning this knob, so if you see, if I turn this knob, you see that moves. So it moves up and down. So that is controlling the thread once you put it into the needle, which is actually the last step that you want to do. So that's the whole point of this knob, is for it to control that aspect of the thread through the needle. So when it's sewing and everything, you know exactly why that needs to be done correctly. Usually when people have problems with sewing, this is one of the reasons why they have problems, because this is not actually done correctly and it's not threaded right. And then they're wondering why it's not sewing. So when you bring it all the way down, the next step is really just to loop it through here. I'm going to bring my presser foot down. So drop it down. And then most sewing machines have a what do you call it, self-threader. So you can use the self-threader. I've been doing it for so many years. I usually just stick the thread right through the hole or the eye of the needle. So I've been doing it for so many years using what you call it, manufacturing sewing machines, that I just gotten so used to doing it that way. So when you thread your needle, you want to make sure your needle goes towards or away from you, towards the machine or away from you in that sense. So go straight in. Don't pull the thread towards you. So make sure the thread goes away from you. That's for all or most sewing machines. I don't know any sewing machine that tells you to do it any other way, because of the way the needle is actually placed inside of your sewing machine. So I'm going to lift my presser foot up, and then I'm going to take this thread that's in the needle and I'm going to pull it within this groove here. And so now I'll be ready to pull the bobbin thread up. So that's the first step. So you put your bobbin in, you thread your sewing machine based off everything that needs to be threaded, and then you want to make sure this last step is correct. There's this little loop that's right there. If you can see this loop, you can see the thread is right through there. Most sewing machines have that so that it can control the thread, because you don't want your thread going all over the place, and sometimes it'll unthread your needle once you start sewing. So make sure you do that, and then you want to go towards or away from you, away from you when you put the thread through the needle. It'll do that if you have a self threader anyway. And then you're going to put the thread through the presser foot, depending on what presser foot you have. This is the normal presser foot. There's other types of presser foots, but we won't even go into that. This one is a pretty good one to just deal with. Just keep it simple. And here, the thread is here. So in order to start sewing, you need to make sure that both threads are up in between the dog teeth and the presser foot of your sewing machine. So if you don't know what I mean by that, this presses fabric, so that's why it's called a presser foot. And then this pulls the fabric through, and that's why they're called dog teeth. So you have to make sure that your top thread and your bobbin thread are in between. So there's a step that you need to take in order for that to happen. So before I do that, who has questions? Anybody? No one? Told you guys I'm going to be moving around a lot. There's a reason why I'm doing it, because I need different ways to make sure you guys can see very clearly what's going on. So I am going to go ahead and pull the threads through the sewing machine. So let's see, is this giving you a good look? Can you guys see that? Is this helping at all? This probably isn't helping. I need for you guys to be able to see. Well, that's the closest, that's the best I can do. Let's see, I want you guys to see. Now you can see. I think that's the best that I can do. So forgive me if it seems pretty hard, but to see, but I want to make sure. So I have my thread here. So let's make sure everything is focused. I have my thread here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my dial. I'm going to turn that towards me. This is too close. Cool. So I'm going to make sure this is through. I'm going to pull or turn the dial towards me so that the needle goes all the way down. I'm going to bring it all the way down, and then I'm going to keep turning until the needle comes up. And what's going to happen is the thread that you're holding, that's the top thread, is going to pull the bobbin thread up. Okay. So, and then I'm going to pull it up. So let's give you guys a closer look of what I'm talking about. It might be hard to see, but it's pulling. There's a loop underneath there. I don't know if you guys can really see it, but I'm going to show you really closely. So I'm going to keep it on here, and then I'm going to say it again. You're going to pull, or you're going to turn your dial towards you, and you keep turning it until your needle comes all the way down and then all the way back up. As it's coming back up, see this loop? It creates that loop. So here's the thread. You can see it. And there's the loop. That's your bobbin thread. So that's your bobbin thread. And you can either use your fingers, or for safety reasons, you can take your scissors. Sorry if this is shaky. And try to pull that loop up. So sometimes I have to pull it really high, and then I'll take my fingers and pull it up. But you need that thread, the bobbin thread, to be completely up. And then there you are. So let me know if I need to show that again. I will. I have no problem doing that. So hit me with a yes if you need to see me do that again. I'll just find a different way to make sure you guys can see it. So I'm going to twist it back. And I'm going to zoom right on in again. All right, so I'm going to take everything back out, and I'm going to show that again. So I'm following how my bobbin should be in. From there, I have some thread extended out. You don't have to have much, but there you are. I'm making sure everything is looped or threaded the way that it should be, which I believe it's off. Why is it over there? So let me rethread this part of my sewing machine. I'm going to put it under or through this bottom aspect of it. I'm going to drop my presser foot down so I can see my needle. If you can't see your needle, remember that dial is what's turning the needle. So I'm going to put my thread through the eye of the needle, pushing it through away from me. thread. And I'm going to lift my presser foot up. I'm going to pull my thread in between the groove that's in the presser foot. I'm going to turn my dial until my needle goes all the way down and comes all the way up. And I can see that it's going to grab. I can see this is moving. I can see my thread moving, so I see it's grabbing it. And then I can also continue to pull that bobbin thread up by lifting up the top thread until I see that loop. I can actually drop this down and grab it from there. And so now I have both my top and bottom threads. So I have both of them in between the presser foot and the dog teeth of your sewing machine. And lift it up, take all of that and bring it back behind the sewing machine. Cool. Cool. Now, if I have to do videos on this, like really in depth, like close, recorded, pre-recorded, if I need to, let me know. That will be in the student area, and those videos will be exclusively for paying students. So this is just me demonstrating and showing you guys, but for paying students, that I can do that. If that's what you're looking for, I'll send out an email and I'll do that for you. If you become a student after, you're going to have access to it anyway. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm making sure we're on time. Yay, it's 2:32, right on time. Awesome. So threading your sewing machine, we have that clear. So now the next step is understanding some of the tools that you probably need to be using. So we don't have access. I kind of have access. I have access to a totally different sewing machine. So this is for at home use, but there are manufacturers, they use a total different sewing machine. They do not use home sewing machines to construct wigs. They use specific dome style sewing machines to make wigs. If you are a paying student, that reference picture is right on the site. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, Google it, because Google is awesome. So Google it so you'll be sure about that. So the best threads to use, preferably cotton polyester blend threads. Sewing machine, whatever thread that you use, don't get too confused or worried about it, just long as it's, is this my all-purpose? There it is. So best threads to use should say all-purpose. It's not even focusing the way I wanted to. So it says all-purpose. So that's the type of thread that you want to use. So if you're like, oh, what type of thread should it be? Cotton, cotton blend, polyester, nylon, coat, who cares? Just as long as it says all-purpose, it works. That's better than nothing or making it more complicated than it needs to be. Other things you need to know is the color thread that you're using. It's pretty simple. The color thread you should be using is preferably black for dark hair, blonde for when we get into coloring hair, because I'm going to have a guest that's going to teach that. So it's better to purchase blonde hair and then let that hair be dyed according to what you want it, the specifications that you want for it. But blonde or anything that's pretty light and that's close to the color of the wefts. The wefts are done in blonde, so that's something you need to know. And then if you want, you can use what we call clear thread. This is coat, transparent coat thread. So for those of you who make nothing but wigs, you could just use this, and this will be perfect for whatever hair color that you have. Whether it's blonde, brown, red, purple, I don't care. If the wefts look a certain color and you don't want to have to buy all of these different color threads, if you're wanting your wigs to look professional, just go for a clear thread. So you got your three options. You have black, you have blonde, and you have clear. The black is for dark hair, your blonde is for blonde hair, and then your clear is for whatever color that you have, including black and blonde. So those are just my suggestions to you. Best needles to use. So in your sewing machine, you want to make sure most sewing machines have a 14. Some sewing machines have 12, depending on your sewing machine, but most of them have a 14 or a 16. So needles, when I mean needles, if you go on Amazon and for your sewing machine, they have needles for it. But the best size that you need, because you need to make sure that the needle can puncture through all of the layers that you're going to be sewing. The layers that you're going to be sewing is the cap and the wefts, and the wefts can be pretty thick depending on what company you purchase the wefted hair from, or that hair that they send to you, or your client decides they want to use. So you want a 14, so there it'll say on there the size is a 14, or a 16. So it'll tell you the size. So these are thick enough to go through layers of sequin. They're able to go through layers of denim, really heavyweight fabrics. So if they can go through heavyweight fabrics, then that means they can go through those high layers of wefts in your cap. So it all depends on what cap you're going to be using. So those are tools that you need to be using. Any questions? Because I'm about to show you stitches now. So let's keep you right here. Give you guys some time to watch. So I need to drop this down. So you get to see in the background how I do all of this. And I'm looking to see if there are any questions. If you're learning a lot, let me know. If this isn't helping you, you can let me know that too. So I need for you guys to be able to see the different stitches that I'm going to be doing. So there are particular stitches you need to be aware of, or how to do when it comes to sewing wefts onto a cap. Straight stitch is not the stitch you want to be using at all. There are different types of stitches. There's these. So some are decorative, some are very small, some are very big. Some are very far apart, some are very middle range, and some are very close together. Like this one is very close together, and I prefer this last one that you see, which is number 9, it says on there. I prefer this for when you're doing half wigs. Call them U-part wigs on YouTube, but in the industry it's half wigs. So when we get into making toupees and toppers, we'll talk about that. Yeah, it's been long, Destina. Don't worry, you're able to see this anyway later. I just went straight into the information, and I'll have extra more tutorials on it, more in-depth specific for paying students. So you're good. You're good. But the types of stitches you should be using. So let's get into that. I'm just going to do a quick demo on that because I'm not going to make that part too long. But there are different stitches that you should be using. So again, I showed a visual of them because I've done this for the courses already. And I think I've done this live already, but these are all decorative stitches. So if you are one of those people who want your caps and your wefts constructed in some way, shape, or form that's exclusive to you, because there are some clients that I deal with that want that when I'm making specification packages for them, for their customized wigs for their clients, and we're talking about stylists and things like that. But you can do decorative stitches, and if you want them in different colors, you can do that. But the most common stitches you want to use are called zigzag stitches. So you want to do a full, like this is the wider stitch where it's stitched wide apart, and then this one is a lot closer, and then this one I mentioned already is even closer, and it's really good for finishing off edges of half caps or half wigs or U-part wigs. When I teach toupees and when I start to teach toppers, which is the woman's form of a toupee, we'll start talking about how you can use this stitch for finishing off, but that will be soon. That's this year. That's in the next month or so. So we'll be talking about that. But these are your zigzag stitches. So you want to use a zigzag stitch. Your sewing machine has a manual. Please use it. Please use it. Oh, wow. Sorry. You're like, what the heck is she doing? There. Your dial. So that needs to be understood. And in your sewing machine manuals, it tells you what each of these stitches are. Another reason why I like Brother is if you're a person who hates to read manuals, here you are. So it's like that on my other two sewing machines. They give you the visuals of what the stitchings you can use are, which ones are decorative, which ones are what they should be or shouldn't be, whatever you want to call it. And then you can just change it to the settings that you want. So those three that I showed you are 7, 8, and 9. So those are the three that you can use. I had it set on 9. You can also have it set on 8 and then 7. So I'm going to put it on 7 for now because that's that medium. This is wide and this is very, very close. There's also other ones that you can use, like 6 is really nice. And then these two on the end are they're just for the purpose of decorative, so you can use those anyway. So if your visual on your sewing machine shows you zigzag stitches, these are the ones you want to use. Preferably the ones that look like these two are the most common use. I'll talk about troubleshooting in a second. I want to make sure that this is given to people who don't know how to use their sewing machines. So I haven't gotten to that part, Justina. So when I do, I'll make sure, because that's actually on that board back there to talk about why your thread keeps breaking and everything. And I think actually I'm going to be showing you that as we get started. So there we are. There's your zigzag stitch. And then let's see. I'm going to just take some fabric. So I would prefer that you guys take some scrap fabric and do this, because that's smarter. It's good practice. So you can get into some of these troubleshooting aspects of your sewing machine, which now I think I could talk about that now. But here is what we're having. We're starting off with, whenever you want to sew through your sewing machine, you have to control your sewing machine. So I always put my needle down before I put my presser foot down. The reason why I do that, because I don't like the shifting. So if you don't know, the moment that you put, I'll have to talk to you later. The moment that you put anything underneath the presser foot, the dog teeth pulls, and the dog teeth pulls the bottom layer of whatever it is that you're sewing. So to keep that from happening where things will get shifted like this, so because it's pulling the bottom and there's your top, you're going to have this uneven thing that's happening. So this is what happens when you put any layer of anything underneath the presser foot. The presser foot holds the top, and then the dog teeth pulls the fabric, and you have things that are uneven. So you can see what I mean by the demonstration of my hands. So to keep that from happening, I put my needle down first, and I make sure it's down automatically all the way into the sewing machine, and then I put my presser foot. So what that happens is the needle, if you pretend that there's a needle that's going through both layers, as soon as I put my presser foot down, this doesn't shift. So that's the whole point. So the best way I can show you is through hand, because I teach it to kids, and it's a visual way for them to understand it. Instead of just them all standing around me at a sewing machine, I have to use my hands as an idea for it. So that's how you want to start off with anything. Practice that, because it'll help you sew faster if you keep those same moments. So you'll be able to sew faster and get things done if you remember needle down first, then press the presser foot down. Your sewing machine has either a button that you can press that allows you to backstitch, or you'll have a button that you have to press and hold down to backstitch. So when you hold this down, meaning it's going to sew backwards. So the fabric or everything is going to come towards you and it's going to sew back. And then once you let go or the button gives you enough to go back by, then you're going to start sewing forward. So once you get to the end of wherever it is you are, presser, foot, you want to go back stitch. You just back stitch. Once you're done, lift your needle completely up, lift, and scissors, or if you have this. Welcome, welcome. I know you just got here. It's been a minute, but you'll be able to rewatch it anyway. So I had to back stitch. So the importance of stitching forward and stitching backwards. Back stitching is to secure your wefts or your fabric. Doesn't matter. It's to secure your wefts onto your cap or to secure two pieces of fabric together from beginning to end of your seam. So keep that in mind. So steps again. Put it through the sewing machine, needle down first, presser foot, back stitch, go forward. Take it to whatever end, wherever you finish, back stitch. Make sure the needle is up and put it through. Cool. Now, last tip with sewing that I need to mention, and then we'll talk about the troubleshooting aspects of it. So quality control, when we get to wig making, you need to make sure that these threads are cut off so they're not all in your way. You can do that as you're sewing, or you can do that at the end, as long as you pay attention that you're going to have threads at the beginning and end of every weft that you sew onto the cap. So quality control is really important with that. So I prefer to do it actually at the end and go from there. So because it takes a lot of time having to go back through each seam and that each weft that you put down and cut. So I tend to do this method as I sew with clothing, but with wig making, no. So here's this last tip I need to make when it comes to the sewing part. So again, here, drop, back stitch. Now, something you need to know, when for any reason that you start sewing and you need to stop to adjust, if your needle is up, you're going to have a problem. So put that needle down, make sure it's down, and you're able to lift your presser foot up and you can adjust if there's an issue. When I mean there's an issue, where if your weft is coming off of the lines that are indicated on a wig cap. So this is in the course where I teach you how to create these lines in order to sew the wefts onto the cap properly. So if for any reason it doesn't, it's starting, you need to start adjusting to make sure it stays on the line that you want to sew. Or if you need to sew at a corner and turn everything, your needle down is your help and your guide to keep everything in line. So that is the most important tip you need to know when it comes to sewing, is that once you stop, make sure the needle is down. I don't care if you stop to take a break because it's getting on your nerves. Put the needle down and leave it like that until you come back and sew. So when everything is adjusted, you just keep going. If I have to stop and my needle is not down, put it down. That's what your knob is for. Your knob, your turner is for. And then last but not least, let's talk about some troubleshooting issues. So I need you guys to see me. Sorry, everything is there. So some troubleshooting things. Someone just asked a question or came in, so I want to see what's going on. Hi, Karen. She's gone. Oh, she left. She used to be one of my fashion students, I believe. I don't want to say I believe, I know. Most of my favorite students, I remember their names from fashion. We're all friends on Facebook, so I know who you are. But if you see this video, later, Karen. Hi. All right. So some troubleshooting questions. If Destina is still on, when she's talking about her thread keeps breaking, what might that problem be? So usually that's a tension issue. Usually that's a tension issue. So there's either 1 to 2 issues that may be going on, or if neither one of those or one of those issues isn't the fact, then that means your sewing machine needs to be serviced. It needs to be maintenance. And you need to find out where you can get your sewing machine maintenance depending on where you live. So you need to make sure of that. Yes, I can use any sewing machine, Keisha. I also can use the manufacturing sewing machines in fashion manufacturers or clothing manufacturers, and also the dome one that you use for wig making and manufacturers. So yes, I do. And I'll be in Africa end of this month, and I'll be recording and doing videos to show you guys how I use those too, because I'll be training some girls on wig making for mass producing for a few stylists and companies. So yes, I can use every sewing machine. So, oh, already mentioned that, Shay. Hey, I already mentioned that. So I'll make sure that this is available to you. It'll be on the site wigmaking101.com so that you can come back and see it. But I'll make sure of that. So back to that question. If your thread, oh, there we go. What am I doing? Oh, there it is. If you have an issue with your, if you have an issue with, if you have an issue with your needle breaking, it might be tension. You might have your tension too high. So I'm not going to even talk about the differences. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this part of it. I'm not even going to talk about, loose, tight, all of this stuff. Like, this is your tension dial. So with your tension dial, I'm not going to talk about what all of these numbers mean. I am going to tell you that the best practice for most home sewing, I don't care if you're making clothing or a wig, keep your little dial in between 2 and 3, 2.5. Depending on if you need it a little bit looser in tension, depending on the fabric, you might go for 2. If you need to be a little bit tighter, you might go for 3, but I would say keep it between 2 and 3. So 2.5 is the best practice. Check that and make sure that is not off, meaning that it's too tight and you're having this issue where it's breaking and it's causing issues with your bobbin as well. Sometimes your bobbin is a problem too. If it keeps breaking, your bobbin might not be threaded or coming up properly, or it's not in there properly based off the diagram that your sewing machine tells you. So like I said, if there's usually 1 or 2 issues, and if those are neither of the issues, then you need your sewing machine serviced. So this is the first, is making sure it's between 2 and 3. And then your second, if there is a second, depending on what it is, you want to make sure that your bobbin is in there correctly. So that's important. Now, there's other things that happen. I'll give you an example. Put my thread there, and I need a pen or a pencil. So I'm going to draw this on here because this happens quite often with sewing. So say, for example, you are sewing and all of a sudden you get this going on with your thread, meaning it's bunching. And you probably have bunching happening underneath as well, underneath your cap. So those are the 2 things. So if your thread is bunching at the top or at the bottom, that means one of 2 things. This is not threaded properly. It's not looped properly. This has to be looped properly. It means it's loose. It's not helping with tension or controlling the thread. So now you have all of this bunching going on top of your wefts or on top of your fabric. The other issue is your bobbin is not threaded, not wind correctly. When I mean wind correctly, that means that your bobbin is loose. You need to check and make sure that this is tightly wrapped around the spool of the bobbin. If it feels loose, it is incorrect. You need to take all that thread off. Unfortunately, that is a waste, so do it right the first time. Use your sewing machine to wind your bobbin. Not only that, make sure that it is winding it tight, because sometimes that could be an issue if you are trying to wind your bobbin and you don't have this pressed over, this leaving it in its original position and trying to wind the bobbin, more than likely it might not turn, or if it turns, it's going to wind the thread around your bobbin very loosely. So keep that in mind. So if you have any type of bunching going on with your threads, you want to make sure that the loop that's threaded correctly, and you also want to make sure that your bobbin is tightly wrapped, the thread is wrapped tightly around the bobbin. So those are important. So I'm going to pull, oh, I got a good view here. I'm going to pull my bobbin thread back up. So again, turning the dial, drop the needle all the way through, bring it all the way up until you can see that you can pull that bobbin thread up, and then I'm going to grab that loop and pull everything. So you need to make sure they're both there. I hate having so much thread, but you don't want to waste thread by cutting it all the time. All right. Now, third tip or troubleshooting issue. If anyone is having a problem where your sewing machine stops sewing or it gets stuck, like the needle gets stuck, that also means that your bobbin is not threaded into the sewing machine correctly, or your tension is off. So like I said, there's usually two things. That means your tension is too tight. So it either like has this noise where it's like stopping on you and you can't get the needle to come up. It's usually that it's too tight. Remember, just keep it in between 2 and 3 and don't touch it from there. Or your bobbin is not winded correctly either. It's always one of these three things. The sewing machine itself is ran off of these aspects of, these three aspects. What's going on with your bobbin and what's going on with your thread control, and then the tension of the sewing machine moving. So those are the things you need to pay attention to. So whatever issue you have, look to those three aspects. The only thing you need to pay attention to when it comes to your bobbin is if the thread is on there tight, and if it is, then you need to make sure it's threaded correctly. This needs to be looped. That is important because it controls, the knob controls the thread. And so you got to make sure your sewing machine is looped or threaded correctly. And you also want to make sure that your tension stays right here. So with all of that said, I have time for those of you who might have your own particular issues. Are there other issues that you're having are there issues? Let me know. I can see. I hope I answered that question for you, Justina, but if that's usually if it's breaking, it's too much tension. Something's going on. And not only that, you might also be having a problem with using the wrong needle too. Remember, I mentioned earlier that best needles that you need to be using is a 14 or a 16. So you can purchase these at fabric stores. You can purchase them on Amazon, AliExpress for your particular sewing machine. Shay, I'm going to go ahead and say I think the best sewing machines are Brother. um, sewing machines because of the diagrams and stuff that you have on them so that you can actually see how you're supposed to thread. It gives you the visuals for beginners. So that's why I like Brothers sewing machines. I also like Singer as well, and Juki's. And Juki's are usually industrial sewing machines. So, but if you're having a problem with breaking, the thread is breaking also, and it's not any of those things, your tension is good and all that is going on, then check your needle size. If you have a 14 and you're having that issue, then move to a 16. It might have something to do with thickness of your wefts compared to your caps. It could be that as well. So, but those are just like little quick troubleshooting things. These things also work if you are sewing fabrics too. So sewing, using your sewing machine is not only for um, not only for wig making, they're also for fashion as well. So these tips also work for that. So I'm trying to see if anybody has any other issues. Let me know. And if you are a paying student and you like, oh my God, I had a question, but I didn't ask her. Okay, the zigzag method does not work for me. So of late, I'm using straight stitch. Hope it's good for, okay. So I mentioned on here demonstrating, and I'll demonstrate real quick on a wig if I have the time. But the importance of using a zigzag stitch. It does work using a straight stitch. It's no problem. You have to just be real good and precise. So that means you must be very good and precise. The importance of using a zigzag stitch, in my opinion, is for home sewing beginners for wig making. Is that something that I would do in the fashion industry? No, we use straight stitch. Is that something that we use in manufacturing sewing for wigs? No, it's actually straight stitch. So I say personally, as an educator in this aspect, straight stitch is perfect. It's good. That's what we use on manufacturing sewing machines as well. But if you are a beginner, use a zigzag stitch. And then there's also another reason why you want to use a zigzag stitch when I'm talking about creating volume for your wigs, just using the wefts. That's for that's going to be put on the website for paid students too. I'm going to be demonstrating that, why I use that technique, and why wig manufacturers use that technique in Africa. So, and that's a total different technique. So, straight stitch is good if you're really good and precise. Awesome. I use zigzag because I'm teaching it at home type thing, and there's other methods that I have involved as to why I teach the zigzag stitch anyway. Okay. All right. I think I got the basics clear. So I'm going to take, my watch likes to talk to me. I'm going to take, I'm going to take the next, I believe 10 minutes. I got a good 10 minutes, actually demonstrating me sewing the rest of this wefts onto this wig. So the company that I'm doing this video for is Human Hair. It's called Wiggins Hair. So if you are not aware, when you watch me on YouTube, a large percentage of the hair that I do have, if I don't purchase it, they're sent to me for review. And I do tutorials because I like to teach people instead of just standing there telling you how the hair looks and feels. And I like, who wants to do that? I prefer to teach you how to use the hair or how to install the hair, or I prefer the tutorials. So this company sent this hair to me for free so that I could teach you guys, and it's a review. So it's a review on it, on the hair. So I'm going to be styling it and all of that, and that will be on my YouTube channel. But I need to finish the freaking wig because I've been working on this wig for maybe about 6 months now. They're probably going to kill me because it took so long getting to it. But I wanted to use it specifically for videos that I have planned for 2019, which we're here now, so they're planned for you. So, let's see. Here we are. This is the hair. And this is the cap that I'm using. All of this stuff is already mentioned on the site. So if you're interested in taking the courses, I have new things that are going to be happening for 2019 that I'm going to be teaching you. That's more manufacturing and industry style, that you can do at home, because it's how I train. And I'll just check the website out. Today is the last day to get the program lifetime access. Today's the last day. After that, the lifetime access is gone. When I mean lifetime access, every time I'm uploading new stuff for the year and to come, if there's new things that I'm learning or there's new things that I'm finding out in the industry itself, you will have access to it. You won't even have to worry about paying. You've already done it. You're good. But that will be done away with. I won't be doing lifetime access. I'll be doing membership instead. And if lifetime access is what you're interested in, then it would be at a higher cost. So I'll be switching to monthly for as long as you need me. And if you want lifetime, you have to pay higher costs. But right now, today is the last day to get it at 4 payments of $69 or just $275 or $299. It's $299. It's $275 for lifetime access. So you might want to jump on that because I'm adding a lot of value to these courses, and that's why it's changing. So I'm going to sew this, and then I'm going to bid you guys adieu. I'm supposed to do this in 5 minutes. So if you want to know anything about spacing and all that cool stuff that is on the site, I'm not going to be mentioning that on here. I'm just going to show you how I start sewing. But there we are. I can see questions if you are asking. I can still see the questions on my laptop that's sitting in front of me. But when you're sewing, you do need to have this disconnected from your sewing machine. All sewing machines have this. Some of them have larger ones that you have to remove so that you can be able to get around, because everything is circular and domed. So you need to be able to get your cap around. So I know I keep doing that. It's because the teaching style. Another thing you want to make sure of is the closures on here. I want my hair over on my right side, and I want to have my cap to my left so I can see what's going on. So I start and place on the edge. I push it all the way through. I don't start on the edge of the, I don't start on the edge at all. I don't start on the edge of the weft or the cap. I actually push it all the way through first, put the needle in, and then back stitch, and then continue to sew. My purpose is to make sure that I stay on these lines. So I'm going to back stitch, and let's stitch it. So you have to control. Don't stretch, meaning don't stretch this way and don't stretch towards you. You just want to make sure it's flat so you can sew. And also don't stretch too much here either. You don't want that happening. Every time I stop, anytime you stop, you should put the needle down, especially when I want to rest. But a lot of times I don't, because I've been sewing for so many years. If the needle is up and I'm trying to adjust, I just adjust pretty fast before anything happens. But if I need to adjust and it takes me longer, like right now, if I want to take longer at it, I'll put the needle down, make sure it's down inside of the weft, and then I adjust everything. So the new courses that's on the website is going to be using a totally different cap. So I will be teaching you how to use that cap. Those videos will be up for module 2, and they'll be up January the 6th. So if you're a paying student, you'll have access to those. Well, you have access to everything now, but there's new courses new video content, and that's starting on the 6th of January. So that's this coming Sunday. Making sure it's flat. If you want to understand spacing and all of that is already on the site. All of that information is taught. And see, now I have to really adjust. So I want to make sure the needle is inside of the weft, and then I need to see what's going on and make sure it's adjusted properly. Yep, needles down. I don't want that one. I want this one. There we go. All right, once I get closer to the end, so I'm just going to put my needle down. I'm not even that close to the end, but I want you guys to be able to see what's going on. So I'm going to lift, adjust, and zoom in a little bit. Did I just delete something? Oh, okay, cool. So here I am at the end part, and this is towards the, hope you guys can see. So this is where I get to the end, even if it's the end of the actual cap, but this is where I get to the end of the actual, I can't even talk. The closure. So I put the closure on first, and then I put the wefts on. So when I get to this point here, I'm just going to keep sewing till I get, this is where you need to take your time. Let the sewing machine pull it through. Once you can see that you're right off that edge, back stitch and forward stitch again. Needle is up. When I lift, I'm going to pull this towards me first. I'm actually going to cut the weft first. So I'm going to cut this weft off. And you can see the back stitch, you can see that line there. You should be able to see that it's really tight when you go back and then go forward. That means it's not going to come loose. And I like to pull everything towards me because it's easier than trying to pull everything the other way. So I pull it towards me, and then I cut the thread off. And then I can start again. So that way I can start again. Cool. All right, guys. So that's it. I got 2 more minutes. My idea is to try to keep this about under an hour and a half. I like an hour and 15 minutes is good enough. Have everything timed. So recap everything in, oh, got the hair on the floor. So recap. In the beginning, I gave you an introduction of myself. So make sure you watch this video. Again, it'll be available to you on the site because it's free, so you guys can see it. But we went over, I have to look so I can see and make sure. But we went over how to wind the bobbin, how to thread the machine, and why you should do it this way properly for most sewing machines. And then I demonstrated the best threads that you can use, the best needles that you can use, and we went over the stitches that you can use, or the best stitches. If you're a beginner and you're learning, I would say start with a zigzag stitch. If you're pretty good with your sewing machine, use a straight stitch. It's totally fine, either one of those. So zigzag or straight stitch is just as professional. So I mentioned that. Troubleshooting, go through that. We talked about bunching when the top has all this extra fabric looping all over the place, or even if it's at the bottom. I mentioned that there are 3 areas you want to look at. You want to look at if your bobbin is threaded tightly or winded tightly. You want to make sure that the machine is properly threaded, meaning your top needs to be threaded correctly, and including your bobbin needs to be done correctly. And then last but not least, your tension. So any troubles that you're having, those are the 3 areas you need to look into and make sure. If it's none of those 3 and those 3 things are at what you think they should be, then that means your sewing machine needs to be serviced. Now, I have to be honest, there are other things too, but it's kind of hard for me to tell you what specifically it is if I'm not there looking at it. So as my student, you already know you have access to me on the GroupMe app, pictures, videos, work. I'm going to be doing a video on how you can use this app a little bit more clearly, because this is going to be how you can communicate with me. So I'll be able to do videos, things like that. You could be able to show me video wise what's going on so that I can show you video wise how to troubleshoot that situation. So if you are a student, you have access to the GroupMe app that's linked right into the student area. If you're watching this video and you are not a member right now, paid or unpaid, you have access, you have limited access right now for free. But there are some things you don't have access to because that's for paying students. So if you're interested in learning from me and all of the aspects and the stuff that I have coming up, go ahead, sign up. Today's the last day for lifetime access. So, pick me up on that offer. Other than that, tomorrow everything changes. From there, it goes into more of a membership site, and then it's a higher price to get it lifetime access, one price instead. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And then I have new videos coming January the 6th. Yep. So it'll be in-depth tutorials for module 2, which is the sewing machine wig making, which we're going to do everything. I mean, I've been teaching you guys how to do things by hand. That's your basics. You need to know that. But doing things on the sewing machine is so much faster if you are doing this for clients, customized wigs, if you're doing this for yourself, or if you ever decide to do what I do, which is train other people how to manufacture, mass produce wigs for salons, for beauty supply stores, and as well as for the entertainment industry when you need to get that done. Like most of you probably don't know, Wendy Williams, she has a seamstress who makes her wigs, and she uses a sewing machine, a home sewing machine. I just recently finished a group of wigs for a photo shoot for South Africa. So that's actually going to be uploaded to the student site for you guys to see that as well. And yeah, so we're all clear from that. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this helped you out quite well with your sewing machine. And yeah, we'll go from there. So I will see you guys either as my students, because every Wednesday at this time there are live tutorials. So if you're my student, just know next Wednesday we have another live. We have another live, and the schedule is already on the site for you to know exactly what we'll be talking about. But it's going to be on sewing machine wig making using a different cap. And I'm going to show you how you can work with that, troubleshooting that, and all of that stuff. So I love you guys. I hope this was helpful. You can thumbs this up because I'm going to make it live anyway. That's good. Share with people who want to learn more and make more money with these particular skills. And I will see you guys in the next live video or in the next free live video or blog. Love you guys.